Blue light ghosted across my skin. Cold. Artificial. It flickered in the dark living room, casting long, distorted shadows against the far wall. A man's voice cut through the silence. Broken. Pleading. "Please. You have to listen to me." The sound was tinny, vibrating through the phone speaker resting on the glass coffee table. My own reflection stared back at me from the dark window across the room, but I refused to look at it. I watched the screen instead. I didn't mean for this to happen. The man on the video looked small, cornered. He was running a hand through his hair, a nervous tic I had memorized 5 years ago. He looked terrified. The camera angle was high, grainy like security footage, but the fear in his eyes was high definition. My chest should have been tight. My breath should have been catching in my throat. That is what people expect when they watch a marriage dissolve in real time. They expect tears. They expect the shaking hands of a heartbroken sister. I took a sip of wine. The Pinot Noir was heavy tasting of dark cherries and oak. I swallowed, feeling the warmth slide down my throat, settling in my stomach like a stone. I wasn't shaking. My finger traced the rim of the glass. 1 circle. 2. On the screen, Joel Henderson was still talking, still explaining, still trying to dig himself out of a hole that had no bottom. It was a mistake. One night. It meant nothing. I paused the video. His face froze in a mask of pathetic desperation. A smile touched the corner of my mouth. Just a small one. Sharp. Dangerous. It had taken 6 months to get here. 6 months of silence. 6 months of waking up at 4 a.m. to check encrypted emails. 6 months of watching my sister Kristen post photos of her perfect life while I held the grenade that would blow it all to hell. People think holding on to a secret is a burden. They talk about the weight of it, the guilt. They are wrong. Holding on to information is not a burden. It is power. I reached for the manila folder sitting next to the phone. The label on the tab was typed in my precise block lettering. Documentation. I flipped it open. The timeline was there. Every date. Every location. The receipts from the Drake Hotel in Chicago. The security screenshots. I had watched Joel kiss a blonde woman in that lobby. I had stood 30 feet away, hidden by a potted palm and a crowd of tourists, and I had watched him destroy my sister's marriage with the same casual selfishness he had used to destroy our relationship 5 years ago. But I hadn't screamed. I hadn't caused a scene. I had taken a picture. And then I had waited. My phone buzzed against the glass table, the sound harsh and violent in the quiet room. The vibration rattled the wine glass. I looked down. A text message. Dad. 2 words appeared on the preview screen. Call me. No question mark, no pleasantries, just the command. The smile faded from my lips. My jaw tightened, a reflex I had developed when I was 14 years old. The air in the room suddenly felt thin. I didn't pick up the phone. Not yet. Instead, I opened my laptop. The screen flared to life, bright and demanding. I clicked on the mail icon and found the message I had been saving. From Elena Vasquez, Horizon Media Group. Subject: final offer details. Los Angeles. I read the first line again. We are thrilled to welcome you to the Team Delaney. Los Angeles. 2,000 miles of distance. A city where no one knew the name Foster, where no one knew that I was the difficult daughter, the cold sister, the one who ruined things. I looked back at the burner phone in the drawer of the coffee table. The cheap plastic device I had used to send the anonymous tips. The device that had ensured Joel was caught by his business partners, not by my sister, keeping the scandal professional, sterile, controlled. I had protected them. I had saved my father's reputation. I had saved Kristen from the public humiliation of who the other woman really was. And now the bill was coming due. I picked up my phone. My thumb hovered over my father's name. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs until they ached, and dialed. Before I could hit send, the screen changed. An incoming video call request. Morgan. I exhaled, the tension in my shoulders dropping an inch. I swiped to answer. Morgan's face filled the screen, pixelated and exhausted. She was still in her scrubs, her curly hair pulled back in a messy bun that looked like it was holding on for dear life. The fluorescent lights of her apartment kitchen washed her out, but her eyes were sharp. So she said. Her voice was raspy, the voice of someone who had just spent 12 hours in the ER telling people bad news. Did Daddy dearest call? Texted, I said. I leaned back against the sofa cushions, pulling my knees up. Call me about your sister. The period at the end really sells the disappointment, Morgan snorted. She grabbed a bottle of water from her counter and cracked it open. And you are going to call him back because you are a masochist, because I need to know what version of events I am working with. Morgan leaned forward, her face getting closer to the camera. Lane, listen to me. You have spent your whole life protecting people who do not deserve it. Your mom did the same thing, and look where it got her. Don't I said. The word came out sharper than I intended. Morgan held up a hand. I am just saying. You controlled how that bomb went off. You protected your dad's consulting career by keeping Vivian Ashford's name out of it. You even made sure Kristen looked like the saintly victim. And what do you bet he is calling to blame you for something? I took another sip of wine. She was right. Morgan was always right. It was annoying. He does not know I had anything to do with it, I said. No one knows, except you. And let us keep it that way, Morgan said. Because if they find out you have been sitting on this for 6 months, they will not see the protection lane. They will only see the lie. I looked at the folder on the table. The edges of the papers were perfectly aligned. They see what they want to see, I said. Call him Morgan, said. Get it over with, then pack your bags. When do you leave for the interview Thursday night? I said. Good, Morgan said. Get out of there, Lane, before they suck you back in. The screen went black. I stared at my reflection in the dark glass of the phone. My eyes looked tired, gray, calculating. I pressed the button to call my father. He answered on the first ring. Delaney. His voice was deep, resonant. The voice of a high school principal who was used to silence falling when he entered a room. Even through the phone, I sat up straighter. I have been trying to reach you all evening, he said. I had work, Dad, I said. My voice was calm, measured, the voice I used for clients who were unhappy with their campaign metrics. What is going on with Kristen? There was a pause. Heavy, weighted with judgment. She is struggling, he said. Joel filed for divorce last week. I closed my eyes. So it was done. Joel had made the move. I heard, I said. She sent me a text. He did not just file Delaney, my father said. He changed the locks. She came home from the gym and found her suitcases on the front lawn. Her key did not work. I felt a flicker of surprise. Joel Henderson was a coward, but I had not expected him to be cruel. Or maybe he just wanted to make sure she could not get to the bank accounts. That is terrible, I said, and I meant it. No one deserved that. She has nowhere to go, my father said. I waited. I knew this dance. I knew the steps. She can stay with you, I said. Your guest cottage is empty. Rules of the community, he said quickly. Too quickly. You know the bylaws, Delaney. No guests for more than 14 days. And this is going to take longer than 14 days. I gripped the phone tighter. She has friends, Dad. She has a life. She has a husband who just humiliated her and threw her onto the street, he said. His voice dropped, losing the authority, gaining an edge of steel. She needs family. I looked around my living room. The clean lines, the quiet, the space I had bought with my own money, the sanctuary I had built brick by brick to keep the chaos out. I have a big week at work, I said. There was silence on the other end, the kind of silence that was louder than shouting. I am disappointed, Delaney, he said softly. The words hit me in the center of my chest, right where the old wound sat. "Your sister is going through a trauma," he continued, "and you are worried about your schedule." "I am not worried about my schedule," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I am saying that I am not equipped to handle this. Kristen and I, we are not good roommates. We do not air dirty laundry," he said, "and we do not turn our backs on family." Family, I thought. Family meant watching my boyfriend leave me for my sister at a barbecue and being told to be the bigger person. Family meant my father arriving 2 hours late to my college graduation because Kristen had a crisis about a haircut. Family meant I was the safety net they only noticed when they fell. I looked at the folder on the table, at the secrets inside. If I said no, he would never forgive me. If I said no, he would look closer. He would start asking questions about how Joel's partners found out. Keep your enemies closer. Control the information. "Fine," I said. "Good," he said. He did not say thank you. He just moved on to logistics. "I am bringing her over tomorrow afternoon. Clear out the second bedroom." He hung up. I lowered the phone. The room was silent again, but it felt different now. Crowded. Suffocating. I walked over to the bookshelf. On the second shelf, tucked between a marketing textbook and a novel I had never read, was a small wooden box. It was locked. I ran my thumb over the smooth wood. My mother's things. The only pieces of her I had managed to keep before Kristen and Dad sanitized the house of her memory. "I am sorry, Mom," I whispered. I went back to the coffee table and picked up the folder. I walked into my home office and opened the bottom drawer of my desk. I placed the folder inside underneath a stack of tax returns. Then I took the burner phone and tucked it into the back of the drawer behind a box of staples. I locked the drawer. Let her come, I thought. Let her bring her chaos and her tears and her drama. I looked at the email on my laptop screen one last time. Final offer details. I wasn't trapped. I was just biding my time. I picked up my wine glass and finished it in one swallow. It was bitter now. I walked to the window and looked out at the dark street. A car drove by, its headlights sweeping across the front yard, illuminating the "For Sale" sign on the neighbor's lawn. Kristen was moving in. But I was already gone. The sound of a car engine idling in my driveway was the only warning I got. It was a heavy mechanical hum that vibrated through the floorboards of my living room. I looked out the window to see my father's black SUV taking up the entire width of the concrete pad. The engine was still running. Of course it was. He did not plan on staying. He was dropping off a package he did not want to deal with. I opened the front door just as the trunk popped open. My sister Kristen stepped out of the passenger side. She wore oversized sunglasses and a cashmere travel set that cost more than my first car. She looked fragile, like a porcelain doll that had been tipped off a shelf, but I knew better. Porcelain shattered. Kristen bounced. "Hey, Daddy," she said, her voice thin and watery. "Can you get the big blue one?" "It has my serums." My father was already hauling a suitcase the size of a steamer trunk onto the pavement. He looked up and saw me standing on the porch. His expression shifted instantly from annoyance to a practiced principal-like sternness. "Delaney," he said, "go grab the other handle." I walked down the steps. The autumn air was crisp, smelling of dry leaves and exhaust. I reached for the suitcase handle. It was heavy, absurdly heavy for someone who was supposedly staying for a few weeks until she got back on her feet. We carried the bags into the foyer. 1 suitcase, 2, 4. Then 3 boxes marked fragile in Kristen's looping, girlish handwriting. My entryway, usually pristine and empty, suddenly looked like a baggage claim carousel. Mitch wiped his hands on his khakis. He looked at his watch. "I have a meeting with the Ashford Foundation in an hour," he said. He looked at me, his eyes narrowing slightly behind his wire-rimmed glasses. "Be good to your sister, Delaney. She has had a hell of a week." I looked at Kristen. She was standing in the middle of my living room, hugging herself, looking small and tragic. She had already taken off her shoes, kicking them carelessly toward the wall. "I will do my best," I said. My father leaned in and kissed my cheek. It was a dry, perfunctory peck. He smelled of Old Spice and coffee. "Call me if you need anything," he said to Kristen. "I love you, Daddy," she whispered. He nodded, gave me one last warning look, and walked out the door. The SUV reversed out of the driveway with a speed that suggested escape. The silence that followed was thick. I locked the deadbolt. The click echoed in the high ceiling of the foyer. I turned around. Kristen had removed her sunglasses. Her eyes were red-rimmed, puffy, perfect for a close-up. She looked at me, and then she looked at the 4 suitcases surrounding her like a fortress. "I know this is awkward," she said. She stepped over a box and wrapped her arms around me. It was a stiff, performative hug. She smelled of vanilla and expensive tuberose, a scent so strong it instantly invaded my space, clinging to my sweater. "I really appreciate it, Lane." "It is temporary," I said, my arms staying at my sides. "Of course," she said, pulling back, "just until I get back on my feet." Joel froze the joint account. "Can you believe that I have literally zero access to cash?" I looked at the mountain of luggage. "How many feet do you have?" I asked. She blinked, the tragic mask slipping for a fraction of a second. "It is just my essentials, Lane." "God, you act like I wanted this to happen." I did not say anything. I just picked up the nearest suitcase and started dragging it toward the guest room. 2 hours later, the sun had gone down and the house felt different, smaller. The air was warmer, stuffier, smelling of that vanilla perfume. I sat in the armchair in the living room, a book open on my lap that I was not reading. Kristen was on the sofa, scrolling through her phone. The television was on, playing some reality show where women in ball gowns screamed at each other. She tossed the phone onto the cushion and sighed. A loud, heavy exhale meant to be heard. "You can stop with the martyr face," she said. I turned a page. "I am reading Kristen. You are staring at the same page you were staring at 10 minutes ago." She shifted, tucking her legs under her. "I did not want to be here either, you know. I wanted to be in my house, with my husband, before he decided to trade me in for a newer model." I closed the book. "Then why are you here?" I asked. "Because Dad insisted," she snapped. The sweetness was gone now, replaced by the sharp edge I remembered from our childhood. "And apparently, I do not get to have preferences anymore. I am just the charity case." "Welcome to my world," I said. She laughed, a harsh sound. "Please. You have always done exactly what you wanted. You are the one who chose to be difficult. You are the one who moved to the other side of town and stopped coming to Sunday dinners. I chose to have standards, I said." "You chose to be bitter," she said. She leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "That is what this is about, isn't it? You are still mad about Joel." I felt a muscle in my jaw jump. "It has been 5 years, Lane," she continued, her voice gaining momentum. "We fell in love. It happened. We did not plan it. But you have held on to it like a prize." I looked at her, really looked at her. She genuinely believed it. She believed the story she had told herself, that love was an accident, a force of nature that absolved her of loyalty. She had no idea that I knew the truth about her marriage. She had no idea I knew how it ended before she did. "I got over Joel a long time ago," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "I am still getting over what this family did to accommodate you." She rolled her eyes and flopped back against the cushions. "You are unbelievable. I am going to bed." She stood up and stormed toward the guest room. She paused at the door, looking back at me. "You know Dad is right," she said. "You really are cold." She slammed the door. I sat in the silence, listening to the hum of the refrigerator. Cold. That is what they called it when you stopped setting yourself on fire to keep them warm. It was past 11 when I finally went upstairs. I could hear movement in the guest room, the muffled sound of Kristen talking on the phone, probably crying to one of her followers. I went into my bedroom and locked the door. Then I went into my closet, pushing aside the hanging blazers to the small safe bolted to the floor. I keyed in the code. I pulled out the manila folder and carried it to my bed. I sat down and spread the contents out on the duvet. It was a map of destruction. There was the timeline written in my neat angular script. October 12. The Drake Hotel, Chicago. I picked up the receipt. It was wrinkled, worn soft from being handled. It was a hotel receipt from the Drake, but it was not Joel's. It was mine. Delaney Foster. Room 412. Check-in October 12. Check-out October 14. I ran my thumb over my printed name. This piece of paper was the most dangerous thing in the house. It proved I was not just an observer. It proved I was there. Physically present in the same hotel on the same weekend, my sister's husband was meeting his mistress. I remembered that weekend. The cold wind off Lake Michigan. The way my heart had hammered against my ribs when I sat in the lobby, hidden behind a newspaper watching the elevator doors open. Watching Joel walk out with his hand on the small of a woman's back. Vivian Ashford. I picked up the burner phone from the nightstand. It was a cheap track phone, the plastic smooth and flimsy. I powered it on. The screen lit up with a blue glow. There was only one contact saved in the address book. Tips. I opened the sent messages. Subject J. Henderson/improper conduct. To Board of Directors, Henderson and Associates. Attached, lobby_cam_still.jpg. I had sent it 3 weeks ago. Just enough time for the partners to conduct an internal investigation. Just enough time for them to pressure Joel to resign quietly or face a public morals clause violation. Just enough time for the stress to crack his marriage wide open. I had destroyed him. Systematically, efficiently. And I had done it while carefully cropping Vivian Ashford out of the frame. I looked at the folder. I should destroy it. I should shred the receipt, burn the notes, smash the phone with a hammer. The job was done. Joel was gone. Kristen was free, even if she did not see it that way yet. And my father's precious connection to Harold Ashford was safe. But I could not do it. I gathered the papers and slid them back into the folder. I turned off the phone. Leverage is only leverage if you keep it, I whispered to the empty room. I put everything back in the safe and locked it. As I stood up, my laptop chimed on the desk. A soft melodic ping. I walked over and tapped the spacebar. From Elena Vasquez. Subject interview schedule. Lane, can you fly out next Thursday? We are ready to move forward. I stared at the screen. Los Angeles. Sunshine. A place where I was just a marketing director, not the wrong sister. I typed a reply. Thursday works perfectly. Sunday morning broke gray and heavy. I walked into the kitchen to find Kristen sitting at the island wearing one of my silk robes. She was drinking coffee out of my favorite mug, the handmade ceramic one I had bought in Santa Fe. She looked up, her face blotchy and swollen. She had been crying for real this time. Good morning, I said, reaching for the coffee pot. It was empty. She had finished it. He texted me, she said, her voice hollow. Who, Joel? He wants to know when I'm coming to get the rest of my things. He is putting the house on the market on Monday. I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms. He moves fast. He is a sociopath, she said. She stared into the black coffee. You know what the worst part is? I waited. There were so many worst parts. I do not even know who she is, Kristen whispered. I felt a chill slide down my spine. I kept my face perfectly still. Who, I asked. The woman. The whore he ruined our life for. She took a shaky breath. His lawyer said her name is not relevant to the divorce proceedings because it is a no-fault state. Joel will not tell me. He is protecting her. She looked up at me, her eyes wide and brimming with fresh tears. It was some young blonde slut from Chicago. That is all I know. He went there for a conference in October. I gripped the edge of the counter behind me. My knuckles turned white. October. The receipt in my safe upstairs seemed to burn through the floorboards. Does it matter who she is? I asked quietly. Of course it matters, Kristen screamed, slamming my mug down on the granite. Coffee sloshed over the rim. I want to know who destroyed my marriage. I want to know her name. I want to destroy her. I looked at my sister. Her rage was messy, undirected, desperate. She wanted a villain. She wanted a name she could drag through the mud, a face she could hate. If she knew that face belonged to Vivian Ashford, the daughter of the man who held our father's financial future in his hands, she would not keep it quiet. Kristen did not know how to keep secrets. She would scream it from the rooftops. She would post it on Instagram. And Dad would lose everything. You are better off not knowing, I said. Focus on the divorce. Focus on moving on. Easy for you to say she spat. You have nothing to lose. You have no one. I looked at her. Really looked at her sitting in my kitchen wearing my robe, drinking my coffee, judging my life while her own was in ashes. She was right. I had no one. And that was exactly why I was the only one who could fix this. I walked over to the sink and rinsed out the coffee pot. The water ran loud and cold. I am going to the grocery store, I said, my back to her. Do you need anything? She put her head in her hands. Just wine, she said. Lots of it. I grabbed my keys and walked out the door. The moment the fresh air hit my face, I inhaled, filling my lungs. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. Elena Vasquez flight. Confirmation attached. See you in LA. I looked back at the house, at the closed blinds where my sister was crying over a man who had never loved her, angry at a woman she couldn't name. I'll be out of here before anyone knows anything, I said to myself. I got into my car and drove away, leaving the secrets locked tight in the dark. By Monday morning, my townhouse had ceased to be my home and had become a hostile territory occupied by a force of one. The smell hit me the moment I walked downstairs. It was not the clean, bitter aroma of my dark roast. It was cloying. Vanilla hazelnut. A scent that coated the back of the throat like syrup. I stopped at the bottom of the stairs. Kristen was in the kitchen. She had commandeered the island, her laptop open, a ring light set up on my granite countertop, and she was talking to her phone in that bright, breathless voice she reserved for her 8,000 followers. So, I am just taking this time to really center myself, she was saying, tilting her chin to catch the best light. Healing is a journey, you guys. It is messy. She did not look messy. She looked camera-ready, wearing a matching loungewear set in oatmeal beige that probably cost more than my monthly utility bill. I walked past her to the coffee pot. It was full of the hazelnut sludge. I poured it down the sink. Hey, she hissed, pausing the recording. I was drinking that. There is a Starbucks 2 blocks away, I said, rinsing the carafe. In this house, we drink coffee that tastes like coffee. She rolled her eyes and turned back to her phone, but I had already stopped looking at her. My gaze had landed on the drying rack. There, sitting upside down among the silverware, was my mug. It was not just a mug. It was a matte black ceramic piece with the Hartwell and Associates logo etched in gold. I had received it after leading the Omnicore campaign, the project that had secured my promotion to senior director. It was the only object in the kitchen that was explicitly mine, explicitly tied to my success. I picked it up. There was a chip in the rim, a small, jagged white mark against the black ceramic. I turned slowly. You used my mug, I said. Kristen did not look up from her screen. She was typing a caption. It is a mug, Lane. There are like 6 others in the cabinet. This one is mine, I said, my voice low. She finally looked at me, exasperated. She gestured vaguely with a manicured hand. I dropped it in the sink. Okay? It slipped. God, you are so material. It is just a cup. It is not just a cup, I said, tracing the sharp edge of the chip with my thumb. It was a gift from my team, for a campaign that won a national award. She laughed. It was a short, dismissive sound. Oh my God, she said, shaking her head. You are literally going to die alone with your awards, aren't you? I set the mug down on the counter. I did not slam it. I placed it with terrifying precision. I looked at my sister. The entitlement radiated off her like heat. She was living in my house, eating my food, chipping my property, and filming her tragedy for an audience of strangers, all while taking zero responsibility for the wreckage she had left behind. "I am going to work," I said. I grabbed my keys and walked out the door before I said something that would make my father never speak to me again. The coffee shop near my office was loud. The espresso machine hissed. The baristas shouted orders, and the indie folk music playing over the speakers was turned up too high. It was perfect. It was the opposite of the suffocating silence of my house. I sat at a corner table nursing a black Americano. Morgan sat across from me picking at a blueberry muffin. She was wearing her street clothes, a leather jacket over a vintage band tee. She looked like she wanted to punch someone. So she said, wiping a crumb from her lip. "How is the roommate from hell?" I took a sip of coffee. The bitterness was grounding. "She chipped my Omni mug," I said. "And she told me I am going to die alone." Morgan stopped chewing. She narrowed her eyes. "I can poison her," she said. "I have access to potassium chloride. It mimics a heart attack. Very hard to trace." I almost smiled. Almost. "I just need to get through the week," I said. "The interview is Thursday. I fly out Thursday night." Morgan leaned forward, resting her elbows on the table. Her expression turned serious. "And then what, Lane? You get the job, you move to Los Angeles, and you just disappear. You leave them thinking you are the villain." I shrugged. "They already think I am the villain. At least in LA I will be a villain with an ocean view." Morgan shook her head. "It is not right," she said. "You are sitting here drinking bad coffee, letting your sister treat you like a servant in your own home, while you hold the evidence that could blow her entire victim narrative out of the water." I looked out the window. Pedestrians were hurrying past, heads down against the wind. "If I tell them I said quiet, if I tell them I knew about the affair 6 months ago, then they know you saved them." Morgan interrupted. "No," I said. "They will know I lied. They will know I watched. And if the name Vivian Ashford comes out?" I stopped. I had never actually said the name aloud to anyone but Morgan. Morgan lowered her voice. "Lane, your dad ordered you to house the sister who stole your boyfriend. He guilt-tripped you into taking her in. Maybe he deserves to lose a consulting gig." I felt a sharp twist in my stomach. "It is not just a gig, Morgan," I said. "It is his reputation. It is his legacy. Harold Ashford is the head of the school board. If he finds out his daughter was sleeping with a married man and that my family was involved, my dad becomes toxic. He loses the consulting contract. He loses his standing in the community. He loses everything he has built since Mom died." Morgan sat back, crossing her arms. "You are doing it again," she said softly. "What?" "Protecting him. You are setting yourself on fire so he does not have to feel a draft." I looked down at my coffee. The dark liquid reflected the overhead lights. "I am not protecting him," I said. "I am managing the blast radius." Morgan sighed. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Her grip was firm. "Just promise me something," she said. "Before you get on that plane, make sure you are running towards something, not just running away." I pulled my hand back. "I have to get back to the office," I said. I stood up, threw my empty cup in the trash, and walked out into the cold. On Tuesday evening, I came home to find my father's car in the driveway again. I sat in my car for a full minute, gripping the steering wheel, breathing in the scent of stale air conditioning and leather. I watched the front window of my townhouse. I could see their silhouettes moving inside. The tall, authoritative shape of my father. The smaller, animated shape of Kristen. They looked like a family, a complete unit, and I was the intruder in the driveway. I got out of the car and walked inside. The living room smelled of pot roast. Kristen had cooked. She never cooked. "Delaney," my father boomed. He was sitting in my armchair, a glass of my scotch in his hand. "You are late. I work for a living." Dad, I said, putting my bag down. Unlike some people, I did not add. Kristen came out of the kitchen wearing an apron over her loungewear. She looked aggressively domestic. I made Mom's pot roast, she said, beaming. I thought we needed some comfort food. I looked at the table. She had set it. Placemats, napkins, wine glasses. It was a perfect tableau of the family dinner I had stopped attending years ago. That is nice, I said. We sat down. The roast was dry. It always was. Mom had been a terrible cook, but we pretended otherwise out of love. Kristen had replicated the dryness perfectly. So my father said, cutting into his meat with surgical precision. How are things settling in fine? I said. Great, Kristen said simultaneously. My father nodded satisfied. He took a sip of scotch. I was just telling Kristen, he said. I had a long lunch with Harold Ashford today. I stopped chewing. I carefully placed my fork on the plate. Oh, I said. He is talking about expanding the consulting contract, my father said, his chest puffing out slightly. He wants me to lead the district-wide curriculum review. It is a 3-year project. Could mean real money. That is wonderful, Daddy, Kristen said. She reached over and patted his hand. You deserve it. He trusts me, my father said. He looked at me over the rim of his glasses. 20 years I have known Harold. Reputation is everything in this business, Delaney. You build it brick by brick, but it takes one crack to bring the wall down. I took a sip of water. My throat felt like it was closing up. One crack, one scandal. One photo of his daughter kissing my sister's husband in a hotel lobby. I have worked hard to keep the Foster name respected, he continued. Especially since your mother passed. She would have wanted this. She would have wanted us all to be successful. Together. I gripped the stem of my wine glass. He was doing it again. Using her ghost to police our behavior. And that is why I am so glad you girls are working this out, he said, gesturing between Kristen and me. Family puts history aside. Family supports each other. I looked at Kristen. She was smiling at him, that adoring golden child smile. She had no idea that the only reason her father's career was safe, the only reason he was sitting here bragging about Harold Ashford, was because I had scrubbed her husband's mistress from the narrative. I saved you, I thought. I saved both of you. And you are sitting at my table, eating my food and lecturing me about support. I am not hungry, I said. I stood up. Delaney, my father warned. Sit down. I have work to do, I said. Confidential files. I walked out of the room, feeling their eyes on my back. I did not stop until I was inside my office with the door shut. It was past midnight. The house was finally quiet. My father had left hours ago, and Kristen had retreated to the guest room. I sat at my desk, the only light coming from the green banker's lamp I had bought at an estate sale. The pool of light illuminated the chaos I had been organizing. The folder was open. I had spread the evidence out on the blotter. The timeline of Joel's movements. The screenshots of his texts that I had intercepted. And the crown jewel of my collection, the receipt from the Drake Hotel. Delaney Foster. October 12. I picked up a pen and started making notes in the margins of the timeline. I was cross-referencing Joel's credit card charges, which I had accessed using his old password he never changed with the security footage timestamps. I did not know why I was doing this. The anonymous tips had already been sent. The damage was done. But there was something soothing about the order of it. The undeniable proof that I was right. That I had seen the pattern when everyone else was blind. I heard a sound. It was soft. The brush of fabric against drywall. I froze. My pen hovered over the paper. I looked up at the door. I had left it ajar just a crack to let the air circulate. Through the sliver of space I could see the hallway. It was dark, but a shadow blocked the faint light from the landing. Someone was standing there. My heart hammered against my ribs. I did not move. I did not breathe. If Kristen walked in right now, she would see everything. She would see the receipt. She would see the name Ashford written in my block letters on the notepad. She would see the burner phone sitting on top of the stack. The shadow shifted. I heard the soft intake of breath. I waited for the door to push open. I waited for the accusation. But the door did not move. The shadow lingered for another second, a second that stretched into an eternity, and then it moved on. I heard the soft pad of bare feet on the carpet moving away from my office toward the kitchen. I let out a breath that shuddered in my chest. She had seen me. She had seen the papers. She might not have seen the details, but she had seen enough to know I was hiding something. I quickly gathered the papers. My hands were shaking. I shoved them back into the manila folder. I grabbed the burner phone. I opened the bottom drawer, tucked the folder under the tax returns, and buried the phone in the back corner. I locked the drawer and pocketed the key. Then I walked to the door and closed it. I turned the lock. The click sounded like a gunshot in the silent house. I leaned my forehead against the cool wood of the door. "She knows," I whispered. "She does not know what, but she knows." I looked at the calendar on my wall. Thursday was 2 days away. I just had to hold the line for 48 more hours. Then I would be on a plane and the wreckage would be in the rearview mirror. But as I turned off the lamp, plunging the room into darkness, I had the sinking feeling that the wreckage was closer than I thought. Wednesday morning started with a silence that felt heavy, pressurized, like the air before a tornado touches down. I walked into the kitchen, dressed for battle in a charcoal blazer and heels. Kristen was at the stove. She was not filming this time. She was scrambling eggs. "Good morning," she said. Her voice was bright. Too bright. It had the brittle quality of sugar glass. "Morning," I said, reaching for the coffee pot. She had made a fresh pot. It smelled like actual coffee. That was the first red flag. "I made you breakfast," she said, sliding a plate across the island. "Scrambled with chives. Just how you like it." I looked at the eggs. They were fluffy, yellow, innocent. "Thank you," I said slowly. I leaned against the counter, taking a sip of coffee. I watched her. She was moving around the kitchen with a frantic energy, wiping down counters that were already clean, rearranging the fruit bowl. "You were working late last night," she said. She did not look at me. She was scrubbing a spot on the granite that did not exist. "I work late a lot," I said. "I know," she said. She paused. "I got up to get water around midnight. I saw your light on." I felt a cold prickle at the base of my neck. "I had a deadline," I said. "What kind of project?" she asked, turning to face me. She was smiling, but it did not reach her eyes. Her eyes were scanning my face, looking for a crack. "What kind of project has you bringing files home? Usually you are so strict about work-life balance." "The confidential kind," I said. She laughed. A short, nervous sound. "Touchy," she said. "I was just making conversation lane." "God, you act like I am interrogating you." I put the mug down. "Aren't you?" She blinked. Her smile faltered. "I am just trying to be a good sister," she said, her voice dropping into that familiar victim register. "I made you eggs. I am trying to be nice. Why do you have to make everything so difficult?" I looked at the eggs. I looked at her. "I have to go," I said. I did not touch the breakfast. I grabbed my bag and walked out. When I got to my car, I sat for a moment staring at the front door. I had locked the office. I had the key in my pocket. But as I pulled out of the driveway, I could not shake the feeling that a locked door was not going to be enough to keep her out. My office at Hartwell and Associates was a glass box on the 12th floor. It was sterile, modern, and completely devoid of emotional baggage. I loved it. I spent the morning in meetings reviewing analytics for the fall campaigns, putting out fires that could actually be extinguished. It was a relief. Work was simple. Input, output. Action, reaction. At 2 o'clock, my phone rang. The screen displayed a California area code. I closed my office door and answered. "This is Delaney. Hi, Delaney. It is Elena Vasquez." I sat down, swiveling my chair toward the window. The Indianapolis skyline was gray and flat under the overcast sky. Elena, I said, it is good to hear from you. We are excited to meet you in person, she said. Her voice was warm, confident. Listen, I want to be transparent with you. You are our top choice for the director role. The team loves your portfolio. This interview on Friday, it is really more for you. We want you to see the space, meet the people, see if we are the right fit for you. I felt a tightness in my chest loosen. I appreciate that, I said. And Lane, she added, whatever is keeping you in Indianapolis, we can work with relocation timing. We know moving is a big step, but we want you here. I looked at the gray city. I thought about the townhouse filled with vanilla perfume and resentment. I thought about my father's disappointment and my sister's accusations. There is nothing keeping me here, I said. Great, Elena said. We will see you Friday. I hung up. I looked at my reflection in the dark computer screen. For the first time in days, the woman staring back at me was smiling. A real smile. I am getting out, I whispered. I picked up my phone and opened my calendar. Thursday, flight to LAX, 7:45 p.m. One more day. I should have known better than to relax. When I walked into my house that evening, the smell of pot roast hit me again. But this time it was accompanied by the low rumble of my father's voice. I stopped in the entryway. My stomach dropped. They were in the living room. My father was sitting on the sofa, his jacket off his tie loosened. Kristen was sitting next to him, her legs tucked under her, holding a glass of wine. They looked up as I entered. It was a tableau of unity. The father and the favorite daughter closing ranks. Lane, my father said. Father, you are home. I put my keys in the bowl. The sound was too loud. Dad, I said. I did not know you were coming over. Kristen invited me, he said. She made dinner. Leftovers, Kristen chimed in. I thought we should have a family night, since you know everything. She gestured, vaguely encompassing the divorce, the move, the tragedy of her life. I walked into the room but did not sit down. I felt like an animal sensing a trap. That is nice, I said. But I have a lot of packing to do. Packing, my father asked, his eyebrows raising. For a work trip, I said quickly. I have to fly out tomorrow for a client meeting. Where? Kristen asked. Chicago. I lied. It was the first city that came to mind. Kristen flinched. The word Chicago hit her like a physical blow. Chicago, she repeated, her voice tight. That is where Joel went. I know, I said. It is a big city, Kristen. It is where he met her, she whispered. The whore. Mitchell leaned forward and patted Kristen's knee. Now, he said soothingly. Let us not dwell on that. We are here to support you, Chrissy. He looked at me. His expression hardened. Kristen told me you have been hostile, Delaney. I almost laughed. Hostile. I am letting her live in my house, Dad. I am sleeping with my door locked because she wanders around at night. I am listening to her film TikToks in my kitchen. You do not have to say it like that, Kristen said, her voice wobbling. Girls, my father said, using his principal voice. This is exactly what I mean. We need to process what happened as a family. Joel has hurt all of us. He has hurt Kristen, I corrected. He has annoyed me. There is a difference. Mitch sighed. He took a sip of his drink. It has everything to do with family, he said. When one of us is in pain, we all feel it. We support each other. That is what fosters do. I looked at them. Sitting there, supporting each other. Support each other. Where was that support when Joel left me 5 years ago? Where was that support when I was the one crying in the bathroom at the family barbecue while everyone else ate potato salad and pretended not to notice? Where was that support when I spent 6 months tracking a cheating husband to save your reputation? Dad. I felt a crack in my composure. A hairline fracture running down the center of my control. I am happy to support Kristen, I said, my voice steady. But I am not going to sit here and rewrite history. Joel was a cheater 5 years ago. He is a cheater now. The only surprise is that it took this long. Kristen gasped. "Dad?" she cried. "That is enough. Delaney," my father snapped. "You will not kick your sister while she is down." "I am not kicking her," I said. "I am telling her the truth, which is more than anyone else in this family does." I turned around. "I have to pack," I said. "I have an early flight." I walked up the stairs. I did not run. I walked with the measured tread of someone who was leaving the battlefield. My bedroom was a sanctuary. I locked the door and leaned against it, closing my eyes. My heart was hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I pushed off the door and went to the closet. I pulled down my carry-on suitcase and threw it on the bed. I started packing. Blazers, heels, a silk blouse for the interview. My movements were sharp, precise. Folding, stacking, zip. I needed to get out of this house. The air downstairs was toxic. It was thick with their shared delusion, their mutual reinforcement of a reality where I was the problem and they were the victims. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Morgan. "You okay?" Radio silence all day. I sat down on the edge of the bed and typed a reply. Flight tomorrow. Interview Friday. I am getting out. Morgan. "You are really doing this." Lane. "I should have done it years ago." Morgan. "What about the house, Lane?" "I will figure it out from LA. Maybe rent it. Maybe sell." "But I am not staying." Morgan. And Kristen Lane. Kristen is not my problem. I hit send. Kristen is not my problem. I stood up and walked to the window. I could see the reflection of the room behind me in the dark glass. The suitcase open on the bed. The empty hangers in the closet. I needed to make sure the evidence was safe. I walked over to the safe in the closet floor. I keyed in the code. The light turned green. I pulled the handle. The safe was empty. I froze. I blinked, thinking my eyes were playing tricks on me in the dim light. I reached inside my hand, sweeping the cold metal interior. Nothing. The folder was gone. The burner phone was gone. My heart stopped. The blood drained from my face, leaving me cold and dizzy. I stood up and spun around, scanning the room. Maybe I had moved it. Maybe I had put it somewhere else. I ripped open the nightstand drawer. Empty. I checked under the mattress. Nothing. I ran to my desk. The drawers were locked. I patted my pocket. The key was there. I unlocked the bottom drawer. There it was. The folder was tucked under the tax returns. The burner phone was wedged in the back corner. I let out a breath I did not know I was holding. I slumped against the desk, my legs weak. I had moved it. Last night. After I heard the noise in the hallway. I had moved it from the safe to the desk because I thought the safe was too obvious. I was losing my mind. The paranoia was eating me alive. I reached in and touched the folder. The paper felt cool and dry. I should take it with me, I thought. I should put it in my carry-on. But then I thought about airport security. The TSA. Pulling out a burner phone and a folder of evidence in front of a line of strangers. Or worse, losing the bag. No, it was safer here. Locked in my office. In a drawer only I had the key to. I locked the drawer again. I tugged on the handle to make sure. It held fast. I went back to the suitcase and zipped it shut. "I am leaving," I whispered. "Tomorrow night. I am leaving." I turned off the light and crawled into bed. But I did not sleep. I lay there in the dark, listening to the silence of the house. Down the hall, the guest room door clicked shut. And then faintly I heard the sound of footsteps. Soft, hesitant, moving toward my office. I sat up. The footsteps stopped. There was the sound of a handle being tried, a rattle of a locked door. Then silence. I stared at the dark ceiling. She was looking. She knew something was there. I closed my eyes. Just one more day. Just 24 hours. I wrapped the blankets tighter around me, but I could not get warm. The cold was coming from inside the house. I woke up at 5 in the morning. My alarm was not set to go off for another hour, but my body jerked awake with a sudden violent jolt, as if I had heard glass breaking. The house was silent. The streetlights outside were still humming, casting long orange bars across my duvet. I lay there for a moment, listening. I could hear the refrigerator compressor cycling downstairs. I could hear the wind rattling the loose gutter on the north side of the house. I threw off the covers. The air in the bedroom was cold. I did not put on a robe. I walked barefoot across the hardwood floor to my office door. I turned the handle. It was locked just as I had left it. I pulled the key from my pajama pocket and slid it into the mechanism. The tumblers clicked. I stepped inside. The room looked exactly as I had left it. The desk was clear. The chair was pushed in. I walked around the desk and unlocked the bottom drawer. I pulled it open. My heart stopped beating for a full second. The tax returns were there. The box of staples was there. But the folder was lighter. Then I saw it. The kitchen junk drawer was slightly open when I came downstairs. The spare key, the one I had forgotten about for years, buried under takeout menus and dead batteries. She must have searched the whole house until she found it. I reached in my hands, shaking so hard I could barely grip the manila tab. I pulled the folder out and opened it on the desktop. The burner phone was still there, wedged deep in the back corner where I had shoved it. Kristen had missed it. Or maybe she did not know what it was. But the papers were gone. The timeline I had meticulously handwritten was missing. The printouts of the security cam footage were missing. And the receipt. The receipt from the Drake Hotel in Chicago, dated October 12, with my name printed clearly at the top. The piece of paper that proved I was not just a spectator in Indianapolis, but a witness in Chicago. I slumped into my desk chair. The leather was cold against my skin. She had a key. Of course she had a key. It was her house too once. Or at least she treated it that way. She must have found the spare I kept in the kitchen junk drawer, the one I had forgotten about because I never used it. She had come in while I was sleeping. She had gone through my things. And she had taken the only evidence that implicated me directly. She did not know about the burner phone. She did not know I was the one who destroyed Joel. But now she knew I was there. She knew I had watched the affair happen and said nothing. I looked at the burner phone sitting innocently in the drawer. I should take it. I should throw it in the river on my way to the airport. But I left it there. I pushed the drawer shut and locked it. I stood up and walked to the window. The Lyft app on my phone said my driver was 8 minutes away. I went back to my bedroom and finished packing. I moved mechanically. Toothbrush, charger, blazer. I was leaving. I was getting on a plane and flying 2,000 miles away. But as I zipped my suitcase shut, I knew the truth. I was not escaping. I was not. I was just delaying the execution. Los Angeles was blinding. After the gray, suffocating damp of Indiana, the California sun felt aggressive. It bounced off the chrome of the cars at LAX, off the glass facades of the skyscrapers, off the white caps of the ocean visible in the distance. I took a cab straight to Santa Monica. The Horizon media offices were on the top floor of a building that looked like it was made entirely of light. Elena Vasquez met me in the lobby. She was shorter than I expected, with sharp eyes and a handshake that meant business. "Lane," she said, "you look exactly like your portfolio." Smart. I smiled. It felt like a mask I had glued to my face. "Thank you," I said. The interview was a blur of glass walls, whiteboards, and enthusiastic nodding. I met the creative team. I met the strategy lead. I sat in a conference room with a view of the Pacific Ocean that cost more than my entire townhouse. For 3 hours, I was not Delaney Foster, the sister who ruined everything. I was Lane, the strategist who had turned around the Omnicorp campaign. I was competent. I was respected. I was wanted. At 4 o'clock, Elena sat me down in her office. She pushed a folder across the desk. "I am not going to play games, Lane," she said. "We want you. This is the offer. It includes a relocation package, a signing bonus, and equity vesting over 4 years." I opened the folder. The number on the salary line was higher than I had let myself hope. I looked up at her. "I want you to start as soon as you can," she said. "But I understand you have a life in Indianapolis to wrap up." I looked at the ocean. It was vast and blue and indifferent. "I can start in 2 weeks," I said. Elena smiled. She reached out her hand. "Welcome to Horizon." I shook her hand. I walked out of the building. I stood on the sidewalk, the ocean breeze tangling my hair, holding the offer letter against my chest. I had won. I had done it. I had escaped. I pulled my phone out of my bag to call Morgan. I turned it off of airplane mode. The device vibrated in my hand. Once. Twice. Then a continuous angry buzz that lasted for 30 seconds, 14 missed calls, 9 voicemails, and a string of text messages that filled the screen. "Kristen, call me. Kristen, I know you are getting these. Dad Delaney, answer the phone. Dad, now." Kristen. How could you? The California sun was still shining, but suddenly I was cold. I sat down on a concrete bench. People walked by laughing, carrying yoga mats and iced coffees. They were living in a world where sisters did not destroy each other. I opened the first voicemail. It was my father. "Delaney, your sister showed me what she found in your desk. Call me immediately." His voice was not angry. It was something worse. It was hollow. I looked at the offer letter in my hand. The paper was crisp, expensive. It was my ticket out. But I could not leave yet. I dialed my father's number. He answered on the first ring. "Where are you?" His voice sounded tinny through the receiver. I imagined him sitting in my living room in my armchair, holding the phone with a white-knuckled grip. "I am in Los Angeles, Dad," I said. "I had a job interview." There was a silence. A long, heavy silence that stretched across 2,000 miles. "A job interview," he repeated. His voice was flat. "Your sister is falling apart and you are in California looking for a job." "I got the job," I said. I wanted to scream it. I wanted him to be proud. I wanted him to see me. He did not even hear me. "Kristen came to me this morning," he said. "She was hysterical. She showed me a receipt, Delaney. From the Drake Hotel." I closed my eyes. The sun was hot on my eyelids. "Dad, listen to me." "October 12. He interrupted. "That is the date on the receipt. That is the same weekend Joel was there for his conference." I gripped the phone tighter. "I was there for work." I lied. It was a weak lie. He knew it. "Do not lie to me," he snapped. "Not now. Not after what you have done." I opened my eyes. A seagull was circling overhead, crying out against the blue sky. "I did not do anything I said." "You were there," he said. His voice rose cracking with emotion. "You were in that hotel. You saw them together. Kristen said you have notes. Timelines. You knew Joel was having an affair 6 months ago." I took a deep breath. "Yes," I said. "I knew." Why, he whispered. "Why didn't you tell her?" "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was handling it," I said. "Handling it." He laughed a harsh, incredulous sound. "You call this handling it? You watched your sister's husband cheat on her and you said nothing. You let her live a lie." "I protected her," I said. "I protected all of you." "You protected yourself," he said. "Kristen told me everything. She told me how you smiled when she told you about the divorce. She told me you looked relieved. I felt a flash of rage so hot it made me dizzy. Kristen, of course. She had spun the narrative before I even had a chance to speak. I did not smile, I said. "You have always been jealous of her," my father said. His voice was quiet now, sad. "I never wanted to believe it. Your mother always said you were just different. But this is cruel, Delaney. To watch your sister suffer and do nothing, to let her find out the hard way. I stood up. My legs were shaking. I did not let her find out the hard way, I said. I made sure she found out the easy way. I do not want to hear your excuses, he said. You have broken this family, Delaney. I hope the job was worth it. Dad, wait. The line went dead. I pulled the phone away from my ear. I stared at the black screen. I was standing in the middle of Santa Monica, holding a job offer that would change my life, and I felt like I was 14 years old again, standing in the kitchen while my father told me I was difficult. I walked back to the hotel. I did not look at the ocean. I did not look at the people. I just walked one foot in front of the other until I was in my room with the door locked. It was midnight in Indiana, but only 9 o'clock in Los Angeles. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed. The room was beige and impersonal. A painting of a sailboat hung on the wall. I picked up my phone and called Morgan. She answered immediately. Tell me you got the job, she said. I got the job, I said. My voice sounded stripped raw. Then why do you sound like you are at a funeral? Because Dad knows I said. Kristen found the receipt. She found the notes. She told him I knew about the affair 6 months ago. Oh shit, Morgan said softly. He thinks I am a monster, Morgan. He thinks I let it happen because I was jealous. He thinks I smiled when she got divorced. Did you tell him, Morgan asked. Did you tell him about Vivian? Did you tell him you saved his retirement? I tried, I said. He would not listen. He hung up on me. Morgan made a noise of frustration. He is an idiot, she said, and your sister is a snake. She snooped through your desk lane. She violated your privacy, stole your property, and then used it to frame you. She is hurt, I said. I was still making excuses. I was still doing it. Stop it, Morgan said. Stop defending them. You saved his career, and he called you a disappointment. Do you see that? I know, I said. I lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Then why do you still want his approval? Morgan asked. Why does it still matter? I closed my eyes. I do not want his approval, I said. I wanted him to know. Once. Just once. That I am not the villain in this story. That I am the one who fixed it. Then make him listen, Morgan said. Go home, sit him down, and tell him the truth. All of it. Tell him about the burner phone. Tell him about Vivian Ashford. Tell him about the blackmail you prevented. I can't, I said. If I tell him about Vivian, I destroy his relationship with Harold. I destroy his peace, Lane Morgan said. Her voice was sharp. He just destroyed his relationship with you. He chose his peace over his daughter. Maybe it is time you stopped protecting people who do not protect you back. I rolled over and opened my bag. I pulled out the small wooden box I had brought with me. My mother's box. I ran my finger over the lock. Maybe I whispered. Go home, Lane Morgan said. Pack your house. Sign the lease in L.A. But before you leave, burn it down. Let them see the ashes. She hung up. I held the box against my chest. I thought about my mother. I thought about the years she spent smoothing things over, hiding the cracks, making sure my father never had to feel uncomfortable. She had died tired. I sat up. I put the box back in my bag. I put the offer letter next to it. I was going home. But I was not going back to be the daughter they wanted. I was going back to be the daughter they deserved. The flight back to Indianapolis felt longer than the flight out, even though the tailwind was in our favor. I landed in a gray drizzle that coated the airplane windows in a sheen of misery. It was fitting. I was leaving the sun and the future to return to the mud and the past. I took a rideshare home. The driver wanted to talk about the Colts, but I put my headphones on and stared at the passing strip malls and wet pavement. When I pulled into my driveway, the house looked dark. My car was sitting where I had left it, looking abandoned. I dragged my suitcase up the walk, the wheels stuttering on the uneven concrete seams. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The air in the house was stale. It smelled of that vanilla perfume and something else, something metallic and sharp, like ozone. I dropped my keys in the bowl. I did not call out. I knew she was there. I walked into the living room. Kristen was sitting on the sofa. She was not crying. She was not wearing pajamas. She was dressed in jeans and a cashmere sweater, her hair perfectly blown out, her makeup flawless. She looked like she was waiting for a job interview or an execution. On the coffee table between us, my manila folder was splayed open. The papers were fanned out like a winning hand of cards. "Welcome home, sis," she said. Her voice was calm. It was the terrifying calm of someone who thinks they finally have the upper hand. I tightened my grip on the handle of my suitcase. "Get out of my office," I said. "Funny," she said, leaning forward. She picked up a piece of paper. It was the receipt. "Because I found some very interesting reading in there. You knew Lane. You knew everything." I did not move. I did not look at the paper. "That is not what happened," I said. "Then explain the dates," she said. Her voice rose, cracking the veneer of calm. "Explain why you were in Chicago the same weekend Joel was. Explain why you have notes in your handwriting detailing his movements. Explain why you watched my marriage fall apart for 6 months and did not say a single word." I looked at her. I looked at the accusation in her eyes, the righteous indignation. She had no idea. She was holding the evidence of her salvation and using it to hang me. "I am not explaining anything to you," I said. "Not until you get your things off my table." She laughed. It was a sharp, jagged sound. "You think you are still in charge?" she asked. "You think you get to dictate the terms Dad is on his way?" My stomach dropped. "I called him," she said, smiling. "I told him everything." I left my suitcase in the hallway and walked fully into the room. "If we were doing this, we were doing it now. You told him what exactly?" I asked. "That you broke into my locked desk, that you stole my property." "I told him the truth," she snapped. "I told him that my own sister is a sociopath who tracked my husband for half a year and let me look like an idiot." "I let you look like a victim," I said. "Because that is what you are. I am a victim of him," she screamed, standing up, "and I am a victim of you. How could you? How could you see him with her and not tell me?" I walked over to the window, looking out at the empty street. I could feel the vibration of her anger in the floorboards. "You want to talk about secrets?" I asked, turning back to face her. "Let us talk about 5 years ago. Let us talk about the 4th of July barbecue." Her face flushed pink. "That has nothing to do with this," she said. "It has everything to do with this." I said, "You want to talk about betrayal? Let us talk about how you accidentally met my boyfriend by the cooler and accidentally started texting him behind my back for 3 weeks before you told me you guys had a connection." "That was 5 years ago," she shouted. "We fell in love. We got married. And now you are divorced," I said. "Because you married a man who cheats. You thought you were special, Kristen. You thought you were the exception, but you were just the next woman in line." She flinched. "We had something real," she said, her voice trembling. "Joel loved me. This woman, this whore in Chicago, she meant nothing." I looked at the notes on the table. The timeline of dinners, hotels, jewelry purchases. She meant enough for him to risk everything I said. "You are jealous," she spat. The word hung in the air, heavy and ugly. I stared at her. "You have always been jealous," she continued, stepping closer. "You could never stand that he chose me. You could never stand that I was happy. That is why you did not tell me. You wanted to watch it burn. You wanted to see me suffer, so you could finally feel superior." I felt a cold laugh bubbling up in my chest. "Jealous?" I asked quietly. "You think I am jealous of you?" I looked around the room. At my house that she had invaded. At my life that she was trying to dismantle. "I am not jealous of you, Kristen," I said. "I pity you. You built a marriage on the ruins of my relationship, and you are surprised the foundation cracked. I am not the one who ruined your life. I am the one who has been cleaning up your messes since we were 6 years old." She opened her mouth to argue, but the sound of tires on gravel cut her off. We both looked out the window. My father's black SUV pulled into the driveway, blocking me in. Kristen smiled. It was the smile of a child who knows the teacher has arrived to punish the bully. "You are going to have to explain yourself to him," she said. Mitch Foster did not knock. He used his key, the one I had given him for emergencies. This apparently qualified. He walked into the living room with the heavy, purposeful stride of a man walking into a disciplinary hearing. He did not look at me. He looked at Kristen. "Daddy," she sobbed. It was instantaneous. The strong, angry woman vanished, replaced by a weeping child. She ran to him, and he wrapped his arms around her, patting her hair. "It is okay," he murmured. "I am here." He looked over her head at me. His eyes were cold behind his glasses. I waited. I stood by the fireplace, my hands clasped behind my back, waiting for the lecture. He released Kristen and stepped back, keeping a protective hand on her shoulder. "I have given you every benefit of the doubt, Delaney," he said. His voice was low, disappointed. "Your sister called me in tears yesterday. She told me what she found." He walked over to the coffee table and picked up the receipt. "But that is not the worst part," he said. He looked at me, disgust curling his lip. "She told me that when she told you about the divorce, you smiled." I blinked. "What?" "She said you looked satisfied," he said. "She said you looked like you had won something." I looked at Kristen. She was wiping her eyes, avoiding my gaze. She had pre-gamed him. She had planted the narrative before I even got off the plane. She knew exactly what would turn him against me. "That is not true," I said. "Do not lie to me," he snapped. "Not with the evidence sitting right here." He waved the receipt in the air. October 12. He read, "The Drake Hotel. The same weekend Joel was there. You were in the same city, Delaney. You were in the same hotel. I did not deny it. There was no point." "Yes," I said, "I was." "And you saw them," he said. It was not a question. I took a deep breath. "Yes, I saw them. And you said nothing," he whispered. "For 6 months. You watched your sister's marriage implode, and you said nothing." He shook his head, looking at me like I was a stranger. "What kind of person does that?" he asked. "What kind of sister?" I looked at them both. Standing there, united in their judgment. They looked so righteous, so sure of their moral high ground. "The kind of person who was trying to protect this family," I said. And as usual, no one noticed. My father frowned. "Protect this family," he repeated. "By letting your sister be humiliated, by letting her husband make a fool of her." "I did not let him make a fool of her," I said. "I made sure that when the truth came out, it was the only thing that came out." My father threw the receipt back onto the table. It fluttered down, landing on top of the security cam screenshots. "I do not want to hear word games, Delaney," he said. "This family has been through enough. I do not need you stirring up more drama because you cannot let go of the past. I am not the one stirring up drama," I said. "I am the one who contained it." "Enough," he shouted. The volume made Kristen jump. He took a step toward me. "You have always been jealous of her," he said. The words hit me harder than a slap. "I never wanted to say it," he continued. "Your mother always tried to defend you. She said you were just sensitive. But I see it now. You could not stand that Joel chose her. You could not stand that she was happy." I felt tears prick the corners of my eyes, hot and sharp. I refused to let them fall. "That is not why I did it," I said. "Then why he demanded? Why keep it a secret? Why keep notes? Why track them like a stalker? Because of who she is," I said. He stopped. What? The woman, I said. The woman Joel was with. Kristen made a dismissive noise. Who cares who she is? She said. She is just some slut from Chicago. She is not just some slut, I said. I looked directly at my father. Did Kristen tell you her name? Mitch looked confused. No, he said. Joel wouldn't say. Of course he wouldn't, I said. Because Joel knows exactly what it would cost you. I walked over to the table. I picked up the folder and pulled out the photo I had cropped. The original security footage still. I held it out to my father. Look at her, Dad. Really look at her. He took the photo. He squinted at the grainy image of the blonde woman laughing in the hotel lobby. I don't know her, he said dismissively. Look harder, I said. You have had dinner with her father 3 times this year. He froze. He pulled the photo closer to his face. His eyes widened. The color drained out of his cheeks, leaving his skin gray and waxy. No, he whispered. What Kristen asked, looking between us. Who is she? That is not possible, my father said. He looked up at me, terror in his eyes. Vivian Ashford, I said. The name landed in the room like a grenade. Kristen frowned. Ashford, she asked. Like Harold Ashford. Your boss. My father sat down heavily on the sofa as if his legs had given out. He was still staring at the photo. 28 years old, I said, reciting the facts I had memorized. Director of the Ashford Foundation. Daddy's little girl. I looked at Kristen. If you had found out 6 months ago, I said, if I had told you the moment I saw them, what would you have done? I would have killed him, Kristen said. I would have? You would have made a scene, I interrupted. You would have posted it online. You would have dragged her name through the mud because you were hurt and angry and you do not think about consequences. I turned back to my father. And if Harold Ashford found out that his daughter was sleeping with a married man, and that the man was your son-in-law, and that the scandal was being broadcast by your daughter. My father closed his eyes. The contract, he whispered. The contract, I repeated. The curriculum review. The retirement income. The reputation you have spent 20 years building. Harold Ashford is a man who values privacy above everything. If this family embarrassed him, he would cut you off before the ink was dry on the divorce papers. The room was silent. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator and my father's ragged breathing. I took the photo back from his shaking hand. I exposed the affair anonymously, I said, my voice steady. I used a burner phone to tip off Joel's partners, so it would look like a business ethics violation. I made sure Vivian's name was scrubbed from the record before it ever got to you. I looked at my sister, who was staring at me with her mouth open. I protected you from the humiliation of everyone knowing your husband left you for a younger, richer woman. I looked at my father, who was slumped on the couch, looking old and small. And I protected you, Dad. I saved your career. I saved your legacy. I dropped the photo onto the table. And this is the thanks I get. You come into my house, you call me jealous, and you tell me I am a disappointment to my mother. I picked up my bag. I am done, I said. I walked toward the stairs. Delaney, wait, my father croaked. I did not stop. I walked up the stairs into my office and closed the door. But I did not lock it. I didn't need to anymore. The secrets were all out. The silence in the house was heavier than the shouting had been. It pressed against the wall's thick and suffocating filtering under the door of my bedroom, where I sat on the edge of the mattress. Downstairs I could hear nothing. No television, no footsteps, no running water. My father and sister were still down there, presumably sitting in the wreckage of the truth I had just dropped on them. I looked at my suitcase. It was still open on the floor, a gaping mouth full of silk blouses and tailored trousers. I should just close it, I thought. I should zip it up, walk down the back stairs, get in my car, and drive until I hit the ocean. I could mail them the keys. I could hire a moving company to deal with the furniture. I never had to see their faces again. I stood up and walked to the bookshelf. My hand hovered over the small locked wooden box on the second shelf. My mother's box. I ran a finger over the smooth grain of the wood. I had told them. I had given them the name. Vivian Ashford. I thought it would change something. I thought seeing the bullet I had dodged for them would make them understand the gravity of what I had done. But my father had just looked at me with that hollow gray expression. He was not grateful. He was horrified. Not because of the danger, but because I was the one who had seen it. I was the mirror showing him his own weakness, and he hated me for it. I pulled my hand back from the box. Leaving was the only logical move remaining. They did not want me here. They wanted the version of me that absorbed the shock and stayed silent. That version of Delaney Foster no longer existed. I reached for the suitcase zipper. The sound of a car door slamming outside made me freeze. It was too aggressive to be a neighbor. A moment later, the doorbell rang. Long, insistent bursts. I checked my phone. One text from Morgan. I am outside. Open the door, or I am picking the lock. I let out a breath that was half laugh, half sob. I walked downstairs. The living room was empty now. My father must have retreated to the guest room with Kristen, or maybe he had gone home to process the fact that his retirement had been hanging by a thread for 6 months. I opened the front door. Morgan pushed past me before I could speak. She was wearing her scrubs and a coat that looked like she had slept in it. She marched into the foyer and spun around to face me. "You are packing," she said. It was an accusation. "I am leaving," I corrected. She shook her head, her curls bouncing. "No, you are running away. There is a difference." I closed the door to keep the cold air out. I told them Morgan. I told them about Vivian. I told them everything. And nothing I said. I walked into the kitchen needing something to do with my hands. I poured a glass of water I did not want. Dad looked at me like I had kicked a puppy. Kristen she did not even hear it. She is still rewriting history in her head. Morgan followed me. She leaned against the counter, crossing her arms. "So you are just going to disappear. You are going to let them decide how this story ends. It does not matter what I say," I said, slamming the glass down. The water sloshed over the rim. "They are committed to misunderstanding me." Morgan stepped closer. Her voice dropped, losing its edge. "Lane, you have spent 34 years being the easy one, the one who fixes things quietly, the one who carries the weight so they do not have to." I gripped the edge of the counter. "That ends now," Morgan said. I looked at her. "What is the point?" I asked. "They won't listen. The point is not whether they get it," she said fiercely. "The point is that you get to say it. Out loud. All of it. You do not leave this house like a thief in the night. You walk out that front door knowing you did not leave a single thing unsaid." I looked at the ceiling, listening to the silence of the house. "I am tired, Morgan." "I know," she said. "But you have one more fight left in you." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a granola bar. She slapped it on the counter. "Eat something, get some sleep. I will be back in the morning to make sure you do not bail." She looked at me, her eyes dark and serious. "Make them hear you, Lane. Burn it down if you have to. But do not fade away." I slept in my clothes. When the sun came up painting the walls in pale, watery light, I did not feel rested, but I felt clear, cold, precise. I went downstairs. They were in the living room. It looked like a crime scene reconstruction. My father was in the armchair wearing the same clothes as yesterday, looking haggard. Kristen was pacing near the window. When I walked in, Kristen stopped pacing. She turned to look at me. There was something different in her eyes today. Yesterday, she had been a victim. Today, she looked triumphant. She reached into the pocket of her cardigan and pulled out a small black object. She slammed it onto the coffee table. The plastic clattered against the wood. It was the burner phone. I stopped. I looked at the phone, then at her. I found it, she said, her voice shaking with adrenaline. It was in the back of your desk drawer, under the tax returns. My father looked at the phone, then at me. What is that? He asked. It is a burner phone, Kristen said. She pointed a manicured finger at me. I checked the sent messages, Dad. There is only one contact, the board of directors at Henderson and Associates. She looked at me, her eyes wide and wild. She did not just know Dad. She is the one who did it. She sent the anonymous tips. She sent the photos to Joel's partners. My father stood up slowly. Delaney, he asked. Kristen turned to him, seizing the momentum. Do you see? She did not just watch my marriage fall apart. She caused it. She is the reason Joel lost his job. She is the reason he came home stressed and angry. She engineered the whole thing. She turned back to me, a smile twisting her lips. You did this. You destroyed my life because you were jealous. I looked at the cheap plastic phone sitting on the table. It looked so small, so insignificant for something that had caused so much damage. I looked at my father. He was waiting for a denial. He was waiting for me to say it wasn't mine, that I was holding it for a friend, that Kristen was crazy. I took a step forward. Is this true? My father asked. His voice was barely a whisper. I looked him in the eye. Yes, I said. Kristen gasped. A sound of pure vindication. See, she screamed. I told you. She is a sociopath. I walked over to the armchair opposite my father. I sat down. I crossed my legs. I smoothed the fabric of my trousers. Sit down, Kristen, I said. She blinked. Excuse me, I said. Sit down. Both of you. I am going to tell you exactly what happened, and you are going to listen to every word. There was something in my voice, a steel that had been forged in 6 months of silence, that made her stop. She looked at Dad. He nodded slowly, sinking back into his chair. Kristen sat on the edge of the sofa, clutching a throw pillow like a shield. Talk, my father said. I picked up the burner phone. I held it in my hand, weighing it. 6 months ago, I said I saw Joel Henderson kissing Vivian Ashford in the lobby of the Drake Hotel. I took a photo. I took a video. And then I went to my room and I sat in the dark for 4 hours trying to decide what to do. I looked at Kristen. My first instinct was to call you, to tell you that your husband was a liar and a cheat. Then why didn't you? She demanded. Because I know you, I said. I know how you react to pain. You lash out. You make noise. You want the world to witness your suffering. I turned to my father. And I know who Vivian Ashford is. I know that her father Harold values discretion above everything else. If Kristen had gone public with that name, if she had posted that photo on Instagram, Harold Ashford would have scorched the earth. I leaned forward. So I made a choice. I decided to handle it in a way that would get Joel out of the picture without bringing the house down on top of us. I held up the phone. I bought this at a gas station in Illinois. I created a generic email address. And 3 weeks ago, I sent a packet to the managing partners at Henderson and Associates. I tapped the phone against my palm. I did not send them the photos of the affair. I sent them proof that Joel was using company funds to pay for the hotel rooms. I sent them proof of the dinners expensed to client accounts that never happened. My father's eyes widened. I made it a business problem, I said, not a personal one. I gave them a reason to fire him that had nothing to do with Vivian Ashford. I looked at Kristen. When the partners confronted him, they gave him a choice: resign quietly or face a forensic audit. He chose to resign. The stress of that, the loss of his income, the fear of exposure, that is why he snapped. That is why he filed for divorce. He was trying to outrun the wreckage of his own life. I put the phone back on the table. I scrubbed Vivian's name from everything. I made sure that when the dust settled, Joel was gone. You were the sympathetic victim, and Dad's connection to the Ashfords was completely untouched. The room was silent. I looked at my sister. I did not destroy your marriage, Kristen. Your husband did that the moment he booked a room at the Drake. I just controlled the demolition so the debris wouldn't kill the rest of us. My father was staring at me. He looked like he was seeing me for the first time. He looked frightened. You did all that, he whispered. Alone. Yes, I said. And you were never going to tell us. I looked at him. I thought about the box upstairs. I thought about the years of being the invisible daughter. I was protecting you, I said. I thought that was what good daughters did. I stood up. I felt light, weightless. I walked over to the side table where I had left my purse. I pulled out the envelope I had brought downstairs with me. The Horizon Media offer letter. I tossed it onto the coffee table next to the burner phone. And now, I said, comes the part where I stop. My father reached for the envelope on the coffee table. His hand was trembling slightly, a tremor of age and shock that I had never seen before. He pulled out the letter, unfolding the crisp, heavy bond paper with the Horizon Media letterhead at the top. He read it in silence. I watched his eyes scan the lines. The salary, the title, the location. Los Angeles, he whispered. The words sounded foreign in his mouth, like the name of a distant planet. I accepted the offer on Friday, I said. I start in 2 weeks. Kristen looked from the burner phone to the letter and back to me. Her face was pale, stripped of the makeup she had cried off and the righteousness she had worn like armor. You are leaving, she asked. Her voice was small. You are leaving Indianapolis. I am leaving a lot of things, I said. But what about the house, she asked. What about me? I looked at her. Even now, with the evidence of my intervention sitting on the table, her first thought was for her own logistics. I was going to tell you after you were settled, I said. I was going to help you find an apartment. I was going to pay the deposit. I was going to make sure the transition was smooth. I paused, letting the silence stretch. But you decided to go through my belongings instead of talking to me. You decided to steal my property and ambush me with it. So, here we are. My father looked up from the letter. He looked older than he had 10 minutes ago. The lines around his mouth were deep grooves of confusion. You were just going to go? He asked. Without asking, I almost laughed. The absurdity of it bubbled in my chest. I am 34 years old, Dad. I do not ask for permission anymore. I inform. He flinched. It was a subtle movement, a tightening of the jaw, but I saw it. The dynamic in the room had shifted. For 30 years he had been the principal, and I had been the student. Now I was the one grading the test. I stood up and walked to the window. The rain had stopped, leaving the street slick and black. You want to know the truth? I asked, turning back to face them. You want to know why I did not tell you about Joel? They did not answer, but they were listening. For the first time in my life, they were actually listening. It was not because I was jealous, I said. I honestly did not care about Joel. I stopped caring about him 5 years ago, about 3 weeks after he left me. He showed me who he was. I believed him. I looked at Kristen. But you, I continued, you showed me who you were too. You showed me that you needed to be the main character so badly that you would rewrite history to make yourself the heroine of a love story that started with betrayal. I turned to my father. And you, Dad. You showed me who you were by calling me dramatic for having feelings about it. You told me to be the bigger person so many times that I eventually just became the silent person. Don't, my father said. His voice was rough. No, I said. We are doing this. I have spent my whole life being the daughter you overlooked because she did not make noise. I fixed things. I handled things. I absorbed the shock. And you convinced yourself that because I did not complain, I did not hurt. I took a step closer to him. Well, Dad, silence is not peace. Silence is just easier for you. He looked down at his hands. Your mother. He started, but his voice cracked. I nodded. Let us talk about Mom, I said. I think about her every day. She would be heartbroken, he whispered. To see you like this. So hard. I felt a tear slide down my cheek, hot and fast. I wiped it away. Mom knew Dad. He looked up, startled. What? She saw. Everything I said. She saw how you always chose Kristen. She saw how you lit up when Kristen entered the room and how you checked your watch when I did. She saw how I stopped asking for anything because asking meant being disappointed. That is not true, he protested, but the conviction was gone. Your mother loved both of you equally. I know, I said softly. Mom loved us equally. You never have. The silence that followed was absolute. It was the sound of a foundation cracking, the sound of a load-bearing wall finally giving way. Kristen made a small choked sound. Lane, she whispered. I looked at her. I am not angry, Kristen, I said. I am just tired. I am tired of being the person who holds everything together and gets blamed when it falls apart anyway. I am tired of protecting people who never even noticed they needed protecting. I looked at my father one last time. I am done. My father opened his mouth. He closed it. He looked at the burner phone. He looked at the photo of Vivian Ashford. He looked at the job offer. I never meant... He stopped. He could not say it. He could not admit that he had been wrong, because if he was wrong about this, he was wrong about everything. He was wrong about the last 20 years. I know, Dad, I said. That almost makes it worse. I turned my back on them. I have a flight to catch. I went upstairs to my bedroom. My hands were steady as I folded the last of my clothes. I walked to the bookshelf and took down the wooden box. I sat on the bed and pulled the small brass key from the chain around my neck. I had worn it under my shirt for 3 days. I unlocked the box. The smell of lavender and old paper drifted up. Inside, there were photos, a dried flower from my high school graduation bouquet, and a letter sealed in a cream envelope. For Delaney. I opened it. My mother's handwriting was looped and elegant, dancing across the page. My dear Delaney. If you are reading this, I am gone, and you are still fighting a battle. I couldn't help you win. I see you. I have always seen you. The one who fixes things quietly. The one who carries weight that isn't yours. The one who stopped asking because asking meant being disappointed. Your father loves you. He just doesn't know how to show it when someone else is louder. That is his failure, sweetheart, not yours. One day you are going to realize you don't need anyone to see your worth for it to be real. You are enough, Delaney. You have always been enough. When that day comes, I want you to stop protecting people who don't protect you back. Even if that means letting them fall. Even if that means walking away. You have my permission to choose yourself. All my love forever, Mom. I lowered the letter. I did not sob. I just let the tears fall, soaking into the denim of my jeans. It was a release. A letting go. She had seen me. She had known. And she had left me the only thing I needed. Permission. I heard a floorboard creak in the hallway. I looked up. My father was standing in the doorway. He looked older, smaller, stripped of his authority. He was looking at the letter in my hand. Your mother, he said. His voice was thick. She wrote to you. I nodded. She wrote to you too, I said. I left it on your dresser after the funeral. He leaned against the doorframe looking at the floor. I know, he said. I read it every year on her birthday. He looked at me. His eyes were wet. She told me I was making a mistake, he said. She told me I was going to lose you if I wasn't careful. I folded the letter and put it back in the envelope. She was always smarter than me, he said softly. It was not an apology. He was not capable of that yet. But it was an admission. It was a crack in the armor. I stood up and tucked the letter into my purse. "Goodbye, Dad." He stepped aside to let me pass. As I walked by him, he reached out his hand, hovering near my shoulder for a second, before dropping back to his side. "Be safe, Delaney," he whispered. I walked down the stairs with my suitcase bumping softly against the steps. Kristen was waiting by the front door. She had stopped crying. She looked stripped down raw, like someone who had just survived a car crash. "Lane," she said. "Wait." I paused my hand on the doorknob. I did not turn around. I didn't know she said. About Vivian. About the contract. About any of it. I didn't know what you did. I turned to face her. "I know. Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. "From the beginning. Why didn't you trust me?" I looked at her. I looked at the sister I had loved and resented and protected for 30 years. "Would you have believed me?" I asked. "Or would I have been the bitter sister trying to ruin your happiness?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. She looked down at her shoes. We both knew the answer. "I don't hate you, Kristen," I said. "I just can't keep being the person who catches you when you fall and gets blamed when you hit the ground anyway." She looked up. Her eyes were searching mine, looking for the safety net she had always relied on. Will you ever come back?" she asked. I looked at the house. At the foyer where we had taken prom pictures. At the kitchen where I had made coffee this morning. At the living room where I had finally burned it all down. "I don't know," I said. "But if I do, it will be because I want to, not because I am told to." I opened the door. The air outside was fresh and cold, smelling of wet asphalt and freedom. I walked to my car. I put my suitcase in the trunk. I put my purse on the passenger seat, the letter resting against the leather. I got in and started the engine. I did not look back at the house. I did not look to see if they were watching from the window. I pulled out of the driveway and turned west. The Indianapolis skyline rose up ahead of me, gray against the breaking clouds. But beyond it, the sun was setting, casting a long golden road toward the horizon. I used to think leaving meant losing. I used to think it meant admitting defeat, admitting that I wasn't strong enough to make them love me. But Mom was right. I didn't need them to see my worth for it to be real. I was enough. I had always been enough. I merged onto the highway, the car accelerating smoothly under my hands. For the first time in my life, I wasn't running away from something. I was running toward myself. There is a profound difference between being a supportive family member and being a silent shock absorber. In this story, Lane spent years believing that her value lay in her ability to fix things, to hide the cracks, and to protect the people she loved from the consequences of their own choices. She thought that if she just sacrificed enough, if she just stayed quiet enough, eventually, she would be seen. But the hard truth, one that many of us learn too late, is that you cannot save people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Lane's journey wasn't just about exposing a secret. It was about exposing the toxic dynamic that relied on her silence to function. By walking away, she wasn't abandoning her family. She was reclaiming her own life. She learned that true love protects you back, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for them is to stop enabling the behavior that hurts you. Have you ever felt like the Lane in your own family, managing the blast radius for everyone else, while you stand in the fire alone? Have you ever waited for permission to choose yourself? If this story resonated with you, maybe it is time to write your own letter of permission, just like Lane's mother did. Because you are enough, and you do not need anyone else to see your worth for it to be real.